Before we discuss anything further, I just wanted to give a quick history summary for context. I also apologize if my voice sounds a little funny. I'm getting over a cold at the moment. So, what are human rights? How do we constitute what our human rights are? Why is it important to our society? The whole idea is that we as humans are born with inalienable and universal rights that cannot be granted nor revoked. Our class lecture compared human rights to a backpack that you carry around with you everywhere you go from country to country. The United Nations, an international organization focused on maintaining world peace, created a document that aims to make a framework for what these human rights are. This document is called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All 30 of its articles outline our fundamental freedoms. Other organizations, such as CEDAW, are established later to focus on specific marginalized groups. We will discuss more about CEDAW later on in this presentation. It is important to discuss what human rights mean and what our human rights are, because all over our world, they are constantly put at risk and violated. There is an active violation of human rights going on at this very moment in France. It was October of the year 2010. France passed a law which bans full facial coverings in public spaces. This law was put in effect as of April 2011 and continues as of today. This law disproportionately affects Muslim women who live in the country, as many, if not almost all Muslim women practice some form of veiling. Veiling is the act of covering one's head or face and is an important aspect to not only Islam but many other religions as well. In Islam, veiling is seen as a symbol of modesty, faith, and is highly important to the cultural identity of Muslim women. The law states that full facial coverings are banned with few exceptions. This include niqabs, which cover most of the face but leave the eyes visible, and burqas, which cover the entire body. Hijabs, which just cover the head of the individual, are not banned from all public spaces. However, France's secular laws ban any religious symbols from public schools and government institutions. Since the hijab is considered a religious symbol by the French government, it is banned in those spaces. All three of these forms of veiling are worn exclusively by Muslim women. This is a negative rights or blue rights violation. Our class lecture on human rights and religion explained what negative rights are. Negative rights are international freedoms we are born with that do not involve any outside influence from the government. Freedom of religion is a negative right. The UN agrees that no government should have interference with what faith you have and how you practice it. So, how does the French government get away with enacting these laws? Each nation must sign on in agreement with the terms. However, that is where it gets tricky. Each nation has a different interpretation on what religious freedom is, and this is the case we see with France's government. The French government sees banning facial coverings as enforcing better security and safety. Banning religious symbols in public spaces is seen as promoting a secular environment. There is no regard for the feelings of Muslim women who are heavily and mainly affected by these rules. It is almost impossible to fully enforce negative rights because when an entire nation is participating in a violation, who are we to hold accountable? The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 18, reads, "Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance." The main part I wanted to focus on was the part of the quote I have highlighted here. And in public or private to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. The French government's banning of religious symbols in public spaces directly opposes the idea that as a fundamental human right we are allowed to practice and worship our religious beliefs in public. Veiling is an active practice of religious belief, and banning it from public spaces directly violates Article 18 of the UDHR. CEDAW, as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, stands for Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Since it is mainly Muslim women who practice veiling, the French laws violate not only religious freedom, but perpetuate discrimination against women, according to CEDAW Article 1 and 13c. Focusing on the first highlighted portion, discrimination against women shall mean any distinction, exclusion, or restriction made on the basis of sex, which has the effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise by women. We can clearly see that laws on veiling violate the exercise, in this case of religion, for women almost exclusively. I also wanted to note in Article 13c that it states women's right to participate in recreational activities, sports, and all aspects of cultural life. Taking away Muslim women's right to veiling is stripping them of an aspect from their cultural lives. A peer-reviewed article which interviews Muslim women from France asks for their stories and experiences with these laws being enforced on them. A young girl immigrated from Algeria to France with her family after these laws have been enacted. She is in search of a high school that will enroll her. She is aware of the laws in France. As long as she is not actively enrolled in the school, she is allowed to wear her headscarf while she meets with the dean. She faces discrimination and is denied entry to the school due to her headscarf. The woman interviewing her claims she must remove her headscarf out of respect if she wants to attend the school. Unfortunately, out of fear of being denied an education, the young girl agrees. The young woman recounts in her interview crying whilst taking her headscarf off in the hallway, feeling defeated. Only then is she allowed to become a student. The article states, she must outwardly express adherence to the majority norm. She must outwardly mimic the norm and erase her difference, making it palatable for the majority, and she must renounce her rights. Not only do Muslim women living in France have experiences with discrimination in education, but they face discrimination in the workplace as well. Another Muslim woman who was a part of the same interview tells her story. She recently got hired at a new job when one random day her HR manager pulls her aside to have a conversation. The woman grew nervous as she had a feeling of what this conversation would be about. She was a woman of Islamic faith and practiced veiling. Her HR manager then proceeded to ask intrusive and personal questions regarding the woman's faith and beliefs that she was not comfortable answering. Asking her questions such as, how do you practice your faith? Why do you practice your faith? And what does it, referring to her head covering, do and mean for you? The author of the article states, she, referring to the HR manager, also feels entitled to ask about the deep and private meaning of her faith. This attempt to measure her level of religiosity is presented as a prerequisite to determine if she is fit for her job. So not only are the restrictions on veiling in France active discrimination against religion and gender and used as a justification to deny people jobs and education, it is also a huge invasion of Muslim women's privacy. The article gathers from these interviews that asking Muslim women not to veil is a discipline to one's gendered bodily experience. I wanted to take a quick moment to relate this quote back to Article 1 of CEDAW, which explains how stripping the right of veiling is an active violation on the exercise of religion for Muslim women. To me, it seems as if Muslim women are being punished based on two factors: the fact that they are Muslim, but mainly because of the fact that they are women. It is quite well known that the act of veiling is typically associated with women. In Islam, of course, but other cultures as well. Catholic sisters do it. Some Jewish women do it. A lot of women who practice Hinduism partake in veiling as well. Due to France's large Muslim population, it tends to target Muslim women the most, but the truth is, the French laws on veiling have the potential to affect all women, reaffirming the idea that the French government's banning of veiling is in fact a discipline to one's gendered bodily experience. The same article also claims that asking Muslim women to remove their veils is an attempt to instruct submission. This is seen in both cases of the interviews I mentioned earlier. Asking Muslim women to remove part of their cultural identity in order to fit into the norm of French society is an example of this instruction of submission. Submission to the French government is expected and even threatened in cases where education or careers are denied to Muslim women. This forces Muslim women to have to make a decision between being fined a large sum of money for practicing their faith or change who they are and what they believe in order to have access to other basic human rights. Because things such as education and the right to work are also considered human rights according to the UDHR. In conclusion, the French laws which ban facial coverings are rooted in Islamophobia. It disproportionately harms Muslim women, and it is a violation of multiple UN human rights documents, including documents from the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights itself. The French government manages to get away with these violations due to the tricky nature of the UN itself and how it is set up. I propose that we come up with a better system of holding those who enforce laws which violate human rights accountable. Perhaps we can include some new statements that are not so broad and up for interpretation into the UN human rights documents in order to ensure the safety, protection, and well-being of Muslim women living under the French government. It is important that we listen to the voices of those who are often kept quiet. By hearing the experiences of Muslim women and their perspectives, we can work towards a more civil and free society for all.